Hello, welcome to Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church here in Santa Monica, California. I'm Pastor Shafer, the senior pastor here at Mount Olive, and each week we talk to an interesting person from around the community, around the nation, even around the world, about the theme of hope, because we believe that hope matters. Our guest today is the Reverend Gladys Moore, who is recently retired as the pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church in Summit, New Jersey, but has a wide and varied career and is one of the leaders of our church over time, I would have to say, Gladys, in your work, working with the New Jersey Synod as assistant to the bishop, working at Mount Holyoke College, working in a number of congregations, but maybe just as importantly, your leadership in social justice ministries across the church and even across the nation. I think when I look at your bio and see all the things you've been involved in and led, it's pretty impressive. So welcome, Gladys. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Eric. It's good to be with you. I have to say, this is only probably the third time that I've said this, but I'm going to amend my title because last year at commencement, I was honored with an honorary doctorate by United Lutheran Seminary.
Well, let's change your title right on screen right now. I'm going to rename
you. This is one of the few times I will ever say this, but it was such a privilege given the seminary's recognition of who I have been within this church to receive that honorary degree. So I want to say kudos to United Lutheran Seminary for that.
How does that look? There you go.
I can't see it, but I
can't see it. Okay. It says the Reverend Dr. Gladys S. Moore, G. Moore.
G Moore. Good.
Got it. Right. Wonderful. Well, congratulations. I didn't know that. And I'm really happy to know that because I think that especially for women, we've got to use these titles.
I agree.
We just really have to, and non-white people, I think, but I mean, especially for women, I think that, they're kind of, what is it that the one guy in the New York Times wrote that the president, that Dr. Biden shouldn't use her title? I mean, how ridiculous was that?
Absolutely.
That's another story. I took double offense at that because my dad had that degree, because he was also dissing the degree, as you know, too. So
yes.
Anyway, that's another topic. But so, Dr. Moore,
Pastor is my preferred title.
So Pastor Moore, in your ministry, which has been on so many levels, congregation, secular university, a prestigious university, the synod staff, and then leadership in areas of anti-racism and equal acceptance for all people. What's the connection for you between being a Lutheran pastor based most of her career in congregations and all of this justice work? I know you worked this out as to kind of where those connections are for you.
I think the connection really does have to do with the gospel, pure and simple. Jesus said in his first sermon, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because God has sent me to preach good news to the poor, to send release to the captives." And I think at its core, the gospel really is about justice, healing, and liberation. So those threads have connected me. I think the other piece has been my own family of origin, seeing my parents who in different ways were both experienced overt racism in their days has made me a champion, not only for people who really are oppressed by racism and white supremacy, but all forms of oppression. So that's just been a part of who I am.
Wow, well, it's an admirable part, my friend, an admirable part. And you have led so many of the groups. I'm looking at your bio, you were the co-chair of Reconciling Works, right? Co-chairperson of Reconciling Works, president of the Jubilee Interfaith Organization, member of the International Conference of Black Lutherans, Summit Interfaith Council on Racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and a leader in our church in so many ways. So, so first of all, thank you for that leadership. You know, in a long career that's not over yet, for sure. Now, you were telling me before we started recording that you're involved in some anti-racism work now. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Sure. I was one of the founding members, actually, of the Summit Interfaith Council Anti-Racism Committee. When Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson in August of 2014, our Summit clergy group realized that as important as vigils are in terms of public lament, vigils are not enough, and they're not going to change systems. We wanted to do something that would really impact the Summit residents on an ongoing basis. So we started dialogue circles on race and trained some facilitators, brought folks together to help people develop a language for dealing with race and racism, to build some bridges across our differences, and to get exposed to the varieties of writings that are out there that really do begin to identify ways in which people of color have so enriched our lives. We are now in, I think, the 12th or 13th semester of this. We've been doing these since 2015, and I've had more than 800 people participate in these dialogue circles on race. So that has just been a tremendous, tremendous thing and so rewarding. When I retired last year, I also started doing some consulting work with a colleague, and it's been a gift to work with a national organization that really helps people experiencing homelessness get on their feet, and if possible, prevent homelessness, Family Promise, because they've made a commitment to combating racism and really understands that a significant portion of why people are homeless, families in particular, is because of racial injustice within housing. That was a long answer, Eric.
No, it's a good answer. And I know Family Promise from working with them in Reading, Pennsylvania, when we did the CBS TV special there for Christmas Eve in 2012. And you know my work with the homeless here, with college student homeless. So yeah, these are things that are dear to my heart also. So thank you for that. Gladys, I don't know how else to put it, but the mood in this country, while it's improving and since the last election, has been really tough for a lot of people. And so where do you find hope in this mess, as we would say?
I'm glad that you asked, because I do think, as Jesse Jackson said, it's important to keep hope alive. And sometimes it really is hard to find. When I was a relatively new Lutheran, I took a course called Word and Witness. And one of the things we had to do was concept cards, where every week we would have to write down where we saw God at work. And I get hope from those areas in which I do see God at work. Most recently, I had the joy of supply preaching at St. John's this past Sunday. I've only been there for a few funerals in terms of preaching, so it was really great to be back at St. John's. And one of the things St. John's is doing is partnering with Bethlehem Lutheran Church, which is one of the oldest Lutheran churches. It's in New Orleans. Oh, yeah. And Bethlehem has now committed itself to building affordable housing with Tulane University. And so here, in a largely African-American community, a small Lutheran congregation is helping to build affordable housing. That is incredibly hopeful. Yeah. That the church has said, as we should, the church exists for the sake of the world and for the community in which it's located. And so praise God for Pastor Benjamin Groth and the people at Bethlehem Lutheran Church, and for St. John's to have the commitment to partner with this congregation in that wonderful outreach.
I was aware of that outreach. I wonder if you, off the top of your head, if our viewers are interested in supporting that wonderful program and with Bethlehem Lutheran in New Orleans, let's see, where could they? I'm sure they could look up. They could certainly Google Bethlehem Lutheran New Orleans, and they would find
Yes.
that, wouldn't they? I mean, if they
Yes,
wanted to help
definitely.
with that,
I would say go to Bethlehem Lutheran New Orleans website, and by all means, support this wonderful ministry that they are doing.
that congregation, as you know, has long been anchored so well in that community.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of the former pastor who we both know, who was there for so long at the Katrina time, and the wonderful work that he did also.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that.
Sure. But I have to
So-
tell you, I want to give you
Sure.
another example of where I am hopeful. I have the privilege now of being an internship supervisor. And the woman that I am supervising was Roman Catholic her entire life. And since she was a child, she wanted to be a priest, but because she was Roman Catholic, she couldn't be. The Spirit over 6 decades kept nudging her, and she started worshiping at St. John's 3.5 years ago. And we met, and she came to me and just wondered what it was like to be a woman pastor. And I told her, and eventually she joined St. John's, and I encouraged her to join the Lutheran Church. She retired from her 30-year ministry as a youth minister at her church in Chatham, started going to Drew Seminary, transferred to United Lutheran in Philadelphia, finished her coursework at the end of December, and now is in her final year doing an internship. And so to have a Roman Catholic woman who is in her 60s feel called to ministry of word and sacrament and be able to fulfill that calling still gives me goosebumps, that even though she's in her early to mid 60s, Somi listened to the call, and that I get to be a partner with her in this journey is incredibly hope-filled, because it doesn't matter when the Spirit keeps nudging you. It's really important to listen.
That's very true. Thank you for that. And I have a similar story I'll tell you about later, but
Okay.
well, actually, our viewers know Samantha Sam Ledoux from this congregation, Roman Catholic, now at Pacific Seminary, and similar story. And
Wonderful.
yeah, and maybe that's always the case, that the next generation gives you hope. I hope so, right?
Indeed.
Well, Gladys, thank you so much for being with us today on Hope Matters. I really appreciate the time to talk.
You are very welcome.
This has been Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Santa Monica, California. Our guest today has been the Reverend Dr. Gladys Moore, ELCA pastor, former assistant to the bishop, former college chaplain, active in all sorts of activities locally and nationally in justice ministries throughout her career. And we're so grateful for your time with us today, Pastor Moore. Tune in again next week for another episode of Hope Matters. We'll talk to some interesting person again, because we believe in a God of hope. We believe that hope matters.